Hello, my name is Dr. Eric Landrum from the Department of Psychology at Boise State University, and this is a screencast for students enrolled in my Research Methods course. This screencast is actually meant as kind of the capping lecture or screencast, if you will, to kind of provide some context and final thoughts about the course and hopefully your research methods experience. Ivan Pavlov wrote near the end of his life, and this is quoted out of Goodwin. He was asked by a group of students writing an article for their journal what it takes to be a great scientist. And here's a picture of Pavlov. And Pavlov replied, it takes three things, three characteristics. The first is to be systematic in the search for knowledge. And the second was to be modest and to recognize one's basic ignorance. And, systematic in the search for knowledge, that's what research methods is all about. And modest and recognize one's basic ignorance is really what a critical thinker and being open-minded is about. So as we've practiced those skills in this course this semester, hopefully you're on that road to having those characteristics of being a great researcher. But the third thing he wrote is passion. And I know you can read this, but I'm going to read it because it's kind of a fun quote. Remember that science demands your whole life. And even if you could have two lives, they would not be sufficient. Science calls for tremendous effort and great passion. Be passionate in your work and your search for truth. Now, those are Pavlov's words. I would kind of soften that a little bit. Even if you had two lives, I'm not so sure you want to actually devote both of them to science. If you want to do that, that's okay. I'm a little bit more of a proponent of work-life balance. And so, if you can have a rewarding personal life, that helps you have a rewarding professional life and vice versa. So I would encourage you to seek out excellence and hone your skills and master your craft. But I'm not so sure that you have to go for the amount of effort that Ivan Pavlov would recommend that you do. There's actually a little bit of research about the traits of good researchers, and I want to cite some of the Rosno and Rosenthal materials here because they have actually articulated what would that list of characteristics look like with regards to good researchers. So certainly you're enthusiastic, you have questions to ask, you're willing to wonder about the world, you're interested in developing empirical answers to interesting questions. Here's that open-mindedness critical thinker theme again. And again, if you've been in the course and following along on the screencasts, number two was actually being a critical thinker. Number three was about characteristics of good science. And so we opened the course with this notion, and now we're coming full circle and we're closing the course. Common sense and kind of trusting your gut, and if something is too good to be true, it probably is. And so to have that skeptical but not cynical approach, and to not discard your common sense in the face of emotional reasoning or trying times, as best you can, to being that critical thinker. Researchers need to use common sense and look for answers where they are most likely to occur, not in the most convenient place. This is this is interesting. And I've got an analogy I'm going to share with you in a minute, but sometimes we do research because it's easy, and I say that. So at most universities, there's an introductory psychology subject pool, and to be honest, not every question in psychology can be answered by freshman students enrolled in an introductory psychology course. So sometimes the researcher has to go where the answers are, not where it's most convenient. And the analogy here is this story of the drunkard search. And you may have heard this in a different context or told as a joke. A drunkard lost his house key and began searching for it under the street lamp, although he dropped the key some distance away. Asked why he didn't look where he dropped it, he answered, well, there's more light here. And so sometimes the data that are the hardest to acquire are actually the most valuable. I'll give you a really quick example. I've been interested in graduate school admissions and the decisions that students make if they're going to go to graduate school or pursue a good job with their bachelor's degree in psychology. And, it's really easy. It's relatively easy for me to survey members of graduate admissions committees, but it's really difficult for me to survey a national sample of students applying to graduate school or graduating in a particular year from a national sample. And so coordinating that kind of research effort takes a lot of work, but you're able to answer questions that are not easily answerable by any other process. So sometimes, again, I believe personally, sometimes the harder it is to acquire the data, the more valuable the analyses from that data will be. Good researchers are role takers. They have the ability to see other people's viewpoints. They're not just seeking out to confirm their own working hypotheses, but they're seeking to figure out what is happening, whether or not it agrees with their own personal beliefs or not. And so traits like creativity and inventiveness are highly valued. Confidence in one's own judgment. And honestly, this will happen the more and more you apply research methods, the more and more comfortable you will become in your decisions based on those methods. It takes confidence over time to build up. Try something new for the first time, you may not be confident, whether it's riding a bicycle or baking a cake or playing a musical instrument, but it takes time and practice to get better. And it's the exact same thing about research methodology. It takes time and practice to get better. This course has really been an introduction to research methods. The more and more you apply these principles, the more confident you will feel in their implementation. Also, a critical value to us scientists and really any educated person in this day and age is that ability to communicate. You could, if you do an amazing study and it's methodologically solid, you have incredible findings. If you can't communicate those to website readers or a journal article editor or a book editor or whatever venue, if you can't communicate your findings, then you might as well, in some ways, not have done the work at all. It would be a shame to do all that great work and then put it into a filing cabinet or into a hard drive. It would be the same thing as creating an amazing orchestral arrangement but never playing it for anyone, or being able to bake this amazing dessert but no one ever gets the chance to taste it. And so there's more to research than the doing. There's also the doing and the telling. And those are two very important components to remember. It's all about attention to detail. Sloppy execution of details will oftentimes lead to generalizations. Is all the work sloppy? So you may be tired by now of being harped on about APA format and spacing and margins and ampersands and how do you cite with two authors, three authors, four authors, inside parentheses, outside parentheses, and all of that. But the ability to attend to those details helps the reader understand that maybe you can be trusted with other bigger details if you can get the little details right. If you're sloppy about the little things, I start to wonder, are you sloppy about the big things? And also the next to last, the penultimate slide here will talk about, or I will talk about, how this attention to detail actually is a great quality trait skill to have because it will help you get a job and help you keep your first job out of college. And clearly, integrity and honest scholarship matter here. Abiding by the ethical code, being ethical psychologist, researcher, these are clearly things that are important to us. If you can't do those things, then it's really not much point of doing all of the other parts of the enterprise of research in psychology. We're getting to the close here, not only of the screencast, but also of the course. And so this becomes a little bit more of the personal platform or bully pulpit for me. So I just want to couch it all that way. I really believe that this course in particular and the psychology major in general can give you an opportunity to practice and acquire and hone skills that will last you a lifetime. That critical thinking, attention to detail, considering alternative explanations for research evidence, thinking about how studies are done, how conclusions are drawn, the importance of replication, of ethics, of reliability and validity. These are all issues that can impinge on everyday decision making. Again, to emphasize that second point, don't forget about those critical thinking skills and scientific inquiry skills that you have learned and practiced in this course. And what I mean by that is that when it's time at the end of your undergraduate career to create that resume or to create that CV, whether you're going to graduate school or looking for a good job with your bachelor's degree, remember to capture those skills that you've learned in this course and other courses into those documents, and so that you can tell your story about what your skills and abilities are as a psychology major and as a psychology graduate ultimately. I would encourage you to take your own personal professional development seriously. And so in other words, take advantage of the opportunities afforded to you. The faculty members here are going to help you as much as they possibly can within the scope of their skill set, but really ultimately, and this is not a cop out, it's kind of on you. I've had students work incredibly hard and take advantage of opportunities that many were offered, but very few actually leveraged their own benefit. So take charge of it. You are the CEO of you, and so make sure that you get a diversity of experiences, and so work on projects, volunteer in the community, have an internship, try to be a research assistant or a teaching assistant. Regardless of the path you choose, those undergraduate experiences are going to be valuable to you and to the folks in your future who may be your employers. All right, we're almost finished here. This is I tell people all the time, this is my favorite slide on the planet. This is the results of a study that Phil Gardner did at Michigan State University. The study's a little bit dated now, but I think that the message is still pretty good. He has a network of over 10,000 employers of college graduates around the country. And by the way, these data are not psychology specific. This is to all graduates. He did publish a study in 2007 where he asked this 10,000 plus pool of employers, when you hire a college graduate into their first job, a new collegiate hire, what are the top reasons that either they get fired or they get disciplined on the job? And so here's that top 10 list, with number one being the most frequent. And if you're looking at the screen carefully, you can see the ones in bold are also reasons for termination of new hires. And so let's just concentrate on those for now. So what are the top reasons that you might get fired from your first job after you've earned your bachelor's degree? Lack of a work ethic or commitment, unethical behavior, failure to follow instructions, missing assignments or deadlines, inappropriate use of technology, and being late for work. And so these are the behaviors that you want to practice not doing while you're in college. That is, you want to hone the behaviors that are going to help you be successful, not only in college, but after college. And so that lack of a work ethic means that in college, work on your work ethic and make commitments. And when you say you're going to get things done, get them done on time, do them well. Obviously, we spent a little bit of time in this course about dealing with ethical behavior, and clearly you want to avoid unethical behavior. Number three there, I think, is really interesting, failure to follow instructions. And I know from teaching this course for a long time that many, if not most, of students come away from research methods. Hate is a strong word, strongly disliking APA format and all the what seems like nitpicky rules. And by the way, some of them are pretty nitpicky and arbitrary. But here's the point. If you can grasp onto and acquire those attention to detail skills that it takes to get good at APA format, odds are that same skill set will serve you well in your first job, your second job, your third job after graduation. In fact, on this list, the third most common reason for new collegiate hires to get fired is the failure to follow instructions. And so practice that skill with me. Practice that skill as an undergraduate, and you will be more employable and keep your employment longer as you graduate from college. Again, things like being late for work, missing assignments and deadlines. And so you might not like the late policy in this course or whatever course you're taking. You might not like there's a penalty for late work. If you practice that skill and ability with me, that is getting things in on time and not being late, perhaps that will help you greatly in your future to get that first job and to keep you that first job. That is, to not be terminated. And inappropriate use of technology. And you've got to figure out, you can use technology in certain ways, but you don't want to be distracting to the people around you. So if you're in class and you don't want to be engaged and you want to be, updating your Facebook status, do it over in the corner of the room where other students are not being distracted. I would imagine the same thing's going to happen in meetings. You're going to be in a meeting in your first job after you get that first job, and you may not be engaged in the meeting, but you want to be using technology appropriately. And so, again, these are the skills that you want to practice in college that are transferable to that career. And so, the stakes are relatively low. If you fail an assignment or something happens negatively in college, you might get a low score, you might get a low grade. And those are things you can recover from. They're more easily recoverable than getting that first job, having rent or mortgage, having people rely on you for an income, and then losing that job, losing that income. It's a lot easier to practice as a college student getting those skills down than it is the risk that you might take if you don't have those skills when you go into the work environment. So I do want to leave you on a positive note. I think there's a lot of good things that can come out of your Psych 321 research methods experience. I think you want to leverage that undergraduate experience, and so that you can hone those skills that are going to make you successful no matter what route you're going to pursue with your bachelor's degree in psychology. And that's it for me, and that's it for the research methods course.